Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Can It Take a K26, the show where we take a variety of Nerf blasters and see if they can be upgraded using a K26 spring. I am your host, Captain Xavier, and today we will once again be covering a trio of blasters that have all been requested in the comments at one point or another, some of them numerous times. And as you no doubt saw from the thumbnail, they are in fact all lever action. Our first contestant is therefore the Nerf Slingfire. The Slingfire was originally released in 2014 as part of the Zombie Strike line. It came with a 6-round magazine, though there was a Kohl's exclusive that came with a 25-round drum. It is, as all of the blasters in this episode, lever action, has a bit of tack rail. One of my favorite features of this blaster is that with a little bit of practice, you can learn to ratchet it one-handed. And as you may have noticed, I am a big fan of any blaster that can be used one-handed, especially blasters that can be used one-handed and don't require batteries. There are a lot more of them now with the hammer-primed blasters. The Snapfire 8 used to be the only one, then the hammer-primed blasters came along and there's a whole plethora of them. And then this one can be ratcheted one-handed. It can't be reloaded one-handed, of course. You do have to prime it and then take the magazine out and all of that. But I think it's actually a neat concept. The aesthetics aren't what... I'm not completely in love with it because it's difficult to mod it to make it look more like a Winchester. It's obviously part of the whole post-apocalyptic, kind of make it look like it's been cobbled together line. But other than that, I think it's kind of a fun blaster. Performance is not great, which is why we have it here today to find out if it can take a K26. Back down! Alright, now I'm curious, how many of you noticed that this is not the blaster that I started with? This one I picked up at Goodwill, and it was jammed. I don't know exactly what the person did or how, but somehow they managed to jam the blaster, and so it was not functioning anymore. And since I had, doing the K26 episode, I needed to open it up anyway, I figured I'd use it. But I needed one that was functional to demonstrate the ratcheting at the beginning of the video. And there you have it. Okay. I am clearly not the first person to have been on the inside of this blaster. And I say that because, first of all, I don't know what this is, but it doesn't belong in this Nerf blaster. There are also internal screws missing and parts broken off. So, that would explain why this blaster was at Goodwill. My guess is, of course, that it got jammed by whatever this little wheel is. Yeah, that was in a position where you wouldn't be able to fully prime the blaster. That's probably what got jammed. But because the magazine was already in it, you couldn't get the jam out because of the obstruction, and they may have tried opening it up, couldn't figure out what was wrong, and simply chose to abandon the whole operation. We are not nearly so silly a person. And we now have it open. Okay. Let us see how bad the damage is. Okay, well, obviously, question one, can it take a K26? It's been asked in the comments if this thing could take a K26, and people were always quick to chime in with their opinions, and the popular opinion was, no, it can't, because the gears would not be able to support it. And I'm not actually sure I agree with that. This thing has fairly stout gears, but, and it'll fit. However, what's going to keep it from working, I suspect, is the same thing that kept every magazine blaster so far from, well, most of the N-Strike magazine blasters. And that is that the K26 is too large and is going to interfere with the catch mechanism. And it's the same here. It will fit in the plunger tube, but it can't get past the catch mechanism because of how much larger in diameter it is. I mean, you can actually fit the stock spring inside it. The stock spring is really quite flimsy, which is kind of surprising. But that is part of why you can do the one-hand ratchet. If it had a heavier spring, you wouldn't be able to do that. The other thing that would probably prevent it from working is the fact that this gear is actually a clutch. Which is to say, if too much stress is put on the blaster, these teeth will pop in enough to allow the handle to move without the gears moving, and that prevents you from shearing the gears. It's better for the gears to slip than for the blaster to break, so they put in a clutch gear there. If you really wanted to be able to put more power in, you could put screws in this so that it couldn't slip, but then you obviously run the risk of breaking off the teeth and completely ruining the blaster. So, no surprise that it cannot. The reason is the same as it was for most of the magazine blasters that I have covered so far. Now we just need to get the gears lined up. Alright, well, that is a no to K26 for the same reason that most magazine blasters couldn't. The catch mechanism gets in the way. It's also entirely possible that the gears couldn't support it, but the gears are actually pretty beefy. I think they probably could, actually. I don't know if this spindly lever could. That's my biggest complaint about this gun, is this wobbly lever. But what are you going to do? Our next contestant is the Air Warrior Rapid Fire Tech, I believe. This was found for me by Jake and the Curator. Thank you so much for that. I was looking for one of these so that I could do this episode, and they found it for me, and now I'm doing it. I think it's called the Rapid Fire Tech. Don't quote me on that. The sticker's missing, and quite frankly, I couldn't be bothered to look it up. But that's what I seem to think it was called. It is a lever-action blaster. Obviously, it also is magazine-fed, but unlike the Slingfire, this magazine takes shells, and this blaster is having some feed issues with said shells. There's probably a reason it was at Goodwill, so we're going to open it up and see if we can't figure out why the shells are having issues. And we're also going to see if it can take a K26, because this is a blaster that, for the life of me, I can't figure out how it works just by looking at it. It doesn't look like it should work at all. And quite frankly, the performance kind of agrees with me. So, first question is, how does it work? Second question, can it take a K26? Let's do this. Okay. So, turns out this one is different. So the plunger is way up here, and not back here. And then there's a hose that connects it, which explains why these things are so flipping weak. Wacky fun. Oh, the plunger head screws off. The plunger head padding screws off. Oh, goody. Okay. Well, first question. Will this plunger tube support K26? Yes. So then all we have to do is get this thing off. So it'll fit. But I'm going to bet large sums of money if we don't reinforce, we're going to need to upgrade this here, which shouldn't be a problem. Alright. If that's not enough to catch it, nothing will be. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a yes for a couple of seconds. And then a failure. Well, unfortunately, the spirit was willing, but the body was weak. The plunger rod has snapped, and so it is not functioning anymore. That is absolutely tragic. Alright, well that is actually a yes. the K26 will fit. The priming mechanism can handle it. However, I believe when I dry fired it after priming it the first time, I think I broke it because I forgot that Busby blasters do not have air restrictors. So the plunger rod went full force, and I think that's probably what cracked it. It also may have cracked when I primed it. Either way, the plunger rod is two parts that go around a center rod, and it broke off. And I attempted to reinforce it. Unfortunately, it didn't work. Anyway, I really like the whole concept of this blaster. I like that it takes shells from a magazine and can eject them and all of that. I like the overall Winchester look of it. It definitely needs a longer stock, so in the event that I ever get as far as metal casting parts, that plunger rod is something that I would put on the list of things to have made out of metal, so that I can revisit this and put K26 on it and put a stock on it and make it look all svelte. If I get my hands on another one, I will try a lighter spring load and remember not to dry fire it. So there you have it. Yes, but it needs a lot of work. On to the next contestant. But first, a drink. Our final contestant is, of course, the one we've all been waiting for, including myself, the Air Warrior Sentinel. As you have no doubt noticed, this is already slightly modified. It has my paint job on it, as well as a section of Slingfire stock added onto the end, because the only problem with the Sentinel stock is that it's too short. My only other complaint about the Sentinel is the mag release. Their mag release is not very ergonomic. I assume they went for simplicity, or perhaps Nerf has a patent of some sort. But speaking of that, it normally comes with the Busby 8-round magazine, but Busby, in their infinite wisdom, chose to make their blasters compatible with Nerf magazines, which is just fantastic. So the Sentinel can take any Nerf magazine or drum, which is beautiful. But what we want to know today is, can it take a K26? Well, let's find out. Now, as many of you are no doubt aware, the Sentinel is widely regarded as one of the better stock blasters that you can get. It has a fairly large plunger tube, metal priming handle, it shoots great stock, and I had been planning to keep it stock for that very reason, just so I could have one really good stock blaster that I could use at wars when they have stock-only rounds, which I thoroughly approve of the concept of. However, they are not exactly rare, and the Curator has a bunch of them. So I'm going to get another one to be my stock blaster, which I will have completely stock, unmodified, unpainted, exactly as it was out of the box for stock battles. And this one I'm going to try to upgrade as much as I possibly can. So I am going to attempt to put K26 in it, which may or may not be a good idea. Hopefully I don't break my Sentinel. That would make me sad. But it's all in the name of science. First thing we're going to do, increase the catch spring. Now for the K26. Now the Sentinel actually has a fairly long spring, so we are going to try to use only as much K26 as necessary. Okay, K26 is in. Now the question is it strong enough? Alright then, unsurprisingly, that is a yes for the Sentinel for K26. There is just a hint of looseness because I had to shorten the K26 just a little bit in order to get it to catch, and so the lever is not quite tight, but it wasn't to begin with. You may also have noticed that I have extended the barrel. It still needs a little bit of cosmetic work. I need to make a little shroud to cover the, I had to slit the barrel in order to get it to fit over the original barrel, and I just need to make a little bit of little something to fit over there to hide that. I love the look of it, the whole long barrel, long stock, love the performance. It is a fabulous blaster. Now, let's recap. Alright, for those of you keeping score at home or who just skipped to the end to see the results, that was a no for the Slingfire. That was, in my opinion, a yes for the rapid fire tech with the right reinforcements that I didn't do, so the blaster broke. But I think with a reinforced plunger rod, I think it could in fact take K26. And that was, of course, a yes for the Sentinel. Which is just a beautiful blaster. So, that's it for the lever action blasters that I have. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, go ahead and put them in the comments below. Also, any questions, concerns, ideas, want to point out things that I did wrong or ideas that you think I should look into, go ahead and put those in the comments below also. And as always, thank you for watching.